let me start another very interesting topic, that is the vinegar production, which is largely used in the day-to-day life. The vinegar is a liquid consisting of about 4 to 20% of weight by volume of acetic acid. Acetic acid is produced by fermentation of ethanol by acetic acid bacteria. Vinegar is now mainly used as a cooking ingredients or in pickling. The vinegar may be defined as a condiment made from sugary or starchy material by alcoholic and subsequent acetic acid fermentation. Now, word vinegar has come from the, that it is like this. The vim is called wine and agar is called sour, or it is syrup. That means it is called sour wine. The vinegar is known as sour wine. Sour wine means wine comprises of what? One comprises of alcohol, now ethanol, and this ethanol subsequently it again undergo the fermentation with the help of some acetic acid bacteria. We call it acetic acid. So Acetobacter aceti. This Acetobacter aceti convert the ethanol to acetic acid. So that is why we call it sour wine. Now, typical types of vinegar, we have apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is made from cedar or apple must and has a brownish color, brownish gold color. You can see how the apple cider vinegar looks, and it contains 4 gram of acetic acid per 100 milliliter media, and it is sometimes sold unfiltered, unpasteurized with the mother of vinegar present as a natural product. So this is how it looks. And wine vinegar, it is usually from the grape juice we produce wine, and then wine, the alcohol that is present there, that is converted to acetic acid. It is prepared from the fermentation of grape juice, and grape based vinegar comes from the several varieties such as red wine and white wine. So for red and white wine, which contains the alcohol, this when we put some Acetobacter aceti, then they convert this to acetic acid. Then we call it wine vinegar. Now then we have malt vinegar. The raw materials is barley malt. Sometimes it is called as aligar. Aligar means it is produced from alley beer. Alley beer, we have seen in the beer when we discuss in the brewing industry, the lager beer and alley beer is mostly used. Now, if we use the alley beer for the production of this vinegar, we call it aligar. It is typically light brown color. You can see it is a light brown color, and in the United Kingdom and Canada, malt vinegar is a traditional seasoning for fish and chips, that is they use. The sugar vinegar raw materials is sugar syrup or molasses. It ranges dark yellow to golden brown color. Now, types of vinegar, that is another type that is available, that what we call spirit or distilled vinegar. This is usually produced from the distilled alcohol, because I know during alcohol making process I told you that alcohol has the boiling point of 78 degrees centigrade. So alcohol is separated out by the distillation process. Now after separation this alcohol, we take it out, and this alcohol is used with the help of Acetobacter aceti, this converted alcohol to acetic acid, and then we call it is spirit vinegar. So it is like this, spirit or distilled vinegar. The product makes from acetic acid fermentation of dilute distilled alcohol. It contains 5 to 8% acetic acid in water with a pH of 2.6. It is known as distilled spirit or virgin vinegar or white vinegar. It is used in cooking, baking, meat preservation, pickling, as well as for medicinal, laboratory and cleaning purposes. The different purposes the vinegar is used. Now here I want to point out very interesting thing. What is the difference between the synthetic vinegar and the natural vinegar? The synthetic vinegar means if we take the pure acetic acid, because pure acetic acid can be produced chemically, and we make it 4 to 20% and do the bottling, then we get the what we call synthetic vinegar. But natural vinegar is usually produced through the fermentation process. Now, what is the difference you will get in the synthetic vinegar and the natural vinegar? In the natural vinegar, since it is produced through the fermentation process, your acetic acid concentration may be same, but during fermentation process, not only your acetic acid is produced, there is some other acid also produced, and also since it is producing from alcohol, ethanol, some trace amount of ethanol also may be present in the vinegar. So in case of natural vinegar, we have different type of component present in the vinegar, but in the synthetic vinegar, we have only the acetic acid. Now, synthetic vinegar also marketed in two different form. One is white vinegar and there is a dark vinegar. Now, you might be knowing the white vinegar, the citric acid doesn't have any color. If you dilute in water, it is perfectly white in colorless. So you put it in the bottle. This is one variety. Another is colored vinegar, that the sugar, when you heat, I showed you that it undergo the dehydration process. When dehydration process, sugar will be caramelized. Caramelization of the sugar will take place, and during caramelization, sugar will be little darker in color, black is in color, and this used as a coloring agent. You make a solution in the water and mix with the acetic acid solution, then you will be dark colored vinegar. That is also marketed. So now here the artificial vinegar is the acetic acid that is made by a chemical process, what I mentioned. Natural vinegar is the acetic acid that is made from the biological process using Acetobacter aceti. The fermented vinegar contains certain metabolites such as aldehydes, butanol and different other, because maybe alcohol, some other components there. The composition of vinegar will depend on the nature of the raw materials, depends on the nature of the raw materials. The condition of manufacture, aging, storage will also influence the composition of the product. So this is the very important point we should keep it in mind. Now, if you look at what is the history behind this vinegar, the first reported by Kurzing, this is in the year 1937, convert the ethanol to acetic acid, and then Pasteur 1868 reported the alcohol is oxidized to acetic acid by a single species of bacteria. The different bacteria strain is available for this process. One is Acetobacter, then Acidomus, then Gluconobacter. The Acetobacter is a Latin word. Acetum, it meaning is the vinegar, and bacter means rock shape. Well, that means Acetobacter aceti, which is used mostly for vinegar fermentation process, because it is rod shape, and that is vinegar, it produces vinegar, that means it produces the acetic acid. So from the name, it is how it is, they put the name like this. The Acetobacter is a Latin word. The acetum stands for vinegar and bacter stands for the rod shape, because if you see the microorganism under the microscope, it will be rod shaped. That is why it is a rod shaped vinegar producing microorganism. There is the Acetobacter. Okay. And then microorganism involved in the acetic acid fermentation process is called a gram-negative bacteria, which oxidizes sugar or ethanol or produce acetic acid. All acetic acid bacteria are rod shaped, and obligation reaction processes the oxidation fermentation. This reaction take place in presence of oxygen. Here I want to point out, in the alcohol fermentation process, the acetaldehyde to alcohol, this is the reduction process. But here alcohol to acetic acid is the oxidation process. So, your organism, one is the organism is aerobic in nature, because organism required dissolved oxygen for their growth and metabolism. Also for the conversion of this ethanol to acetic acid, we required oxygen. So, this is the, it has dual purpose. Now, this is the pathway that we have, that is how ethanol that is converted to acetaldehyde is then to acetic acid. This is the oxidation of ethanol acetic by Acetobacter species. Now, question come, what is, how the industrially we produce vinegar. I shall discuss this in details. The raw materials, we take it, and then we have upstream processing, addition of sulfur dioxide, centrifuge, blending, and addition of nutrient, whatever is required, we do this for preparation of the media. Then we have alcoholic stock, from that we get the alcoholic stock. Then we put the organism Acetobacter aceti here, we start up culture, undergo fermentation process. Then after fermentation process, we have downstream processing like sedimentation, clarification, pasteurization, filtration, addition of sulfur dioxide. Then we this sulfur dioxide we add in case we don't do the pasteurization, because this is used as a preservative material, and we get the vinegar. This is how we produce vinegar in the industry. Now, question comes, so what are the factors that influence the vinegar fermentation process? The important organism that is used, that is Acetobacter aceti, Acetobacter pasteurinum, and Acetobacter xylinum. So, say the first factor is the selection of organism and nature of the raw materials they use, then concentration of ethanol and amount of vinegar added at the start of fermentation, because the vinegar itself, they use lot of vinegar at the initial phase of fermentation, as it one is it used as an inoculum, and another way it maintains the pH of the media, because it should be acidic around 3 to 3.6, that is maintained by adding the vinegar. So, significant amount, I shall discuss the process in details. And then the concentration of ethanol and amount of vinegar added at the start of fermentation, the acidification of the media, and it acts as an inoculum, what I pointed out. Then oxygen is to be supplied, this is aerobic fermentation process. Temperature of the media is very important. Nature of supporting material. Nature of supporting material I shall discuss. We know that two type of process, that your organism can grow freely suspended in the liquid and produce acetic acid, or we can, but we can immobilize the cell on the solid matrix and pass the material through this immobilized solid matrix. When it passes through this, it ethanol is converted to acetic acid. So, that supporting material they are talking, that where the organism fix on the surface of the solid matrix. And then aging and storage, where here also aging and storage is very important, because during the aging process, the alcohol, some alcohol and acid, they form the esters that they help to develop some kind of flavor there. So, that is also clarification, that is also take place. Then we do the bottling and pasteurization. Composition of the containers and equipment, that also plays very important role. The reason is that acetic acid is the acid, and which has some corrosive property. Now, raw materials used for the vinegar fermentation process, any product capable of yielding alcohol by fermentation, that is raw materials. We use the apple juice, grape juice, orange juice. We can use the hydrolyzed starchy material, beer, and wine. The different type of raw materials can be considered for this fermentation process. And then wine, apple juice is the best raw materials that find for the vinegar production. The quality of the vinegar depends on the large part quality of the raw materials, and clean and sound fruit in proper state of maturity should be used, and wine alcohol media should be clear and clean and free from preservative, so that your organism can grow properly. Now, and as the steps involved, I told you the first steps is the ethanol fermentation process, where the sugar is converted to ethanol with the help of Saccharomyces cerevisiae or Saccharomyces ellipsoideus, and then we maintain the temperature 75 degree, 75 to 80 degree Fahrenheit. After fermentation, yeast pulp and other sediments should be removed by settling and storage for 2 to 3 weeks. Then with the racking also kind of a clarification process. After that, in the second step, we are adjusting the concentration of alcohol. Now here I want to point out the alcohol concentration plays very important role in acetic acid fermentation process. If the concentration is more, that is undesirable. More than 13%, it is undesirable. If it less than 13%, that is also undesirable. So we find that 13% is very optimum for this acetic acid fermentation process. Now alcohol contains about 10 to 13%. Now if it is 14%, it causes the incomplete oxidation. If a lower concentration results in loss of vinegar. The concentration of ethanol less than 1 to 2% esters and acetic acid are oxidized with the loss of aroma and flavor. So this is the reaction that will take place, that lower concentration this acetic acid in presence of oxygen, that will oxidize to carbon dioxide and water. The acidification, the purpose of acidification, because I told you significant amount of vinegar is used at the initial stage of fermentation for dual purpose. One is to maintain the pH. The purpose of acidification to inhibit the development of undesirable type of bacteria and to supply the desirable acetic acid producing bacteria for seeding purpose. So this has dual purpose. We increase the decrease the pH so that other bacteria cannot grow, and also we supply the Acidobacter aceti so that alcohol can be converted to acetic acid. 10 to 25% weight by volume of strong vinegar is added, and vinegar made from completely fermented juice are usually low in acetic acid and poor in quality. So this is very important, that incomplete fermentation that gives a lot of unwanted material, and that resulted very poor quality of vinegar, that we should keep it in mind. And then oxygen supply, as I told you that oxygen is very much required, because this is the oxidation process. The ethanol is oxidized to acetaldehyde and acetaldehyde is oxidized to acetic acid. The availability of large quantity of oxygen decides the production of fermentation, and that is the production rate of the fermentation. Temperature is 26.30 to 32 degrees centigrade. At high temperature, loss of solvent or substance like alcohol, acetic acid, volatile substances occur. So we shall have to maintain the temperature in between 26 to 32 degrees centigrade. Low temperature favors the slow. If you reduce the temperature, the activity of the organism will be reduced. Then the rate of fermentation will be slow. The supporting material, it should be increase the area of surface exposed, and thus accelerate the fermentation by virtue of the availability of larger oxygen supply. So because usually the beechwood saving that is used as a packing material, I shall explain the process, and then it should be little lighter wood. If it is lighter wood, then lot of the perforation is there inside the wood. Lot of pore we have inside the wood. So your oxygen can go through the pores, and organism also can immobilize on that, and then that your production of ethanol to acetic acid production will be more. The wrapped or light wooden grating may be used as a support for the bacterial flame in the casks or barrels. It is kept in the horizontal condition to get the greater surface area for bacterial. We know that mode is the surface area. Mode will be the organism will be attached to the surface. So if the concentration of the organism is mode, then there is a rate of reaction, rate of conversion of ethanol to acetic acid is expected to be mode, because this is what is the beechwood saving is generally regarded as as being highly acceptable material for this. This is for citric acid production. The characteristics of ideal packing material, this is very important. It does not imparting color or flavor to the vinegar. It should not have any toxic substances, should not contribute iron, copper and sulfur, should not pack loosely or tightly, should not remove any desirable color material present in the fermented broth. Now, the vinegar, this is homemade. How it is homemade? This is just one typical the photo, that schematic diagram is giving here. The vinegar is moved at home by simply providing the air supply and allowing the barrels of cider or wine to ferment spontaneously. So, here we have alcohol added in the barrel where we have vinegar, then we put it here, we take out this and vinegar diluted with water, then we put it in the bottles like this. This is how homemade vinegar is. Now, two processes largely available for vinegar fermentation process. One is called Orleans or the French process, another is we have German process. Let me discuss about the French or Orleans process. It is the oldest and the best method for the production of table vinegar. Barrels are approximately 200 liters capacity are used. Each barrel contains 1/3 with a good grade of vinegar. I told you that significant amount of vinegar is required at the startup of the fermentation process. Then 1/3 means it is 1/3, if it is 200 liter is 1/3 approximately about 66 liter. So, 66 liter we add, and we found that we add 10 to 15 liters of wine, and then at weekly interval some amount of wine is added in the barrel, same amount of wine is added, not some, same amount of wine is added, because this is 10 to 15 liters, same amount we keep on adding, and then after 5 weeks that 10 to 15 liters vinegar we withdraw, and same amount of wine we take it in. This is a semi-continuous process. Air is admitted at the barrel through the holes at each sides of the barrel. I can show you this. It looks like this. This is called bung hole. This is a hole where the air goes, but we put some kind of that membrane here, so that no flies and other things can enter into the system. At the same time, here air can enter into the system through this. So, air is admitted in the barrel through the holes at the each end of the barrel, and these holes are screened to prevent the entrance of the insects. I told you that. And slow and costly, it is a slow and costly process, and good grade vinegar can be produced through this process. So, this is a old process, and this called the largely used from the old days they use largely, but more advanced process is considered the German process, or what we call generator process. And this is consists of large cylinder wooden tank. So, I can give the example that this is the wooden tank. So, here we can have beetroot shaving. We can put the beetroot shaving. This is beetroot shaving, and so your organism will be immobilized on the surface. Then you pass your air through this, and here there is a sprinkler. So, you can have a sprinkler like this. So, we put ethanol here. The sprinkle, the organisms are immobilized on the surface. When it goes, then it comes in contact with this, and they produce the acetic acid. Then you can take out the acetic acid from here. You can take it out from it. The large cylindrical tank, wooden tank, air is entered in the generator through the perforated bottom. So we can have a distributor. We can have the distributor like this. The perforator self approximately halfway between the top and bottom of the tank, and aids in supporting the beechwood shaving to present the large surface area for the acetic acid bacteria. The use of perforated self prevents crushing and matting of the shaving. So perforation, that is very much required for that, and rotating spurger, uniform distribution of the vinegar stock. This is uniformly this we put some kind of vinegar stock. We have vinegar plus ethanol, both we put together. Vinegar stock we put together. A generator of this is usually that 10 to 20 feet the height, and produces about 80 to 100 gallons of distilled vinegar per day. And then temperature regulation is done by flowing the air, and continuous, this is a continuous rapid process. So this is how this process is used, and this rate of acetic acid production will be much higher as compared to the French or Aldin process. Now next problem is the storing of vinegar. The purpose is the freshly fermented vinegar has a harsh flavor. I told you during the fermentation process lot of fatty acid formation is there, that gives the very harsh flavor. So this harsh flavor will be diminished as soon as you stored, because alcohol and acid, they form the esters. It also helps developing the good flavor and clarification, because it removes some kind of suspended material. Storing tanks are completely filled with vinegar to prevent the oxidation of acetic acid to carbon dioxide and water. Storing is done for 1 year, and storage tank is usually made of wood. That is usually the packing material, the composition of the containers. That the vinegar is corrodable, and iron will cause the darkening of the vinegar, and tin will causes the poisoning by forming the tin acetate. Copper produce the color and flavor. So this is not required. So we are the containers should be of proper quality, and the containers should be made of either oak wood, stainless steel, glass, or high purity aluminum that is used as a containers. Thank you very much.